Welcome to the Next Play podcast. In this short episode, which is for coaches, we are going to focus on a mistake to avoid in the preseason. Now, I'm a former basketball coach, but I think this applies to all sports and to all coaches. But one of the major mistakes that I made in my career in the preseason is focusing on way too many things. One coach told me that teams that are good early focus on one thing. And I said, well, what's the one thing? He said, that's up to you. And it stuck with me. As I look back on my career, our teams were always bad early. And one of the reasons for that is we were trying to be good at everything. And that's an easy mistake to make because there's so much to do. As a basketball coach, there's so many things you have to put in. One time I was at a very good coach's practice. I had a warrior culture session with them after their practice. And they had a scrimmage the next day. Well, this excellent coach was trying to just go over every scenario that might happen in the scrimmage the next day. And it took forever, and we were late into my session, but ultimately the players weren't going to remember very much of that because he was trying to throw way too much information at them. And, you know, when you think about it, as coaches, we all talk way too much, especially in the preseason. In the preseason, I recall talking way too much. And in this culture, in our society today, with the cell phone culture, with the phones constantly in our hands, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. Ours are as coaches, our athletes especially. In my warrior culture clinics, sometimes male athletes, I notice, especially in high school, I've got about 4 or 5 minutes before I need to do something. Now, what can they remember? And again, our attention spans are so short. So we need to talk less, and we need to get them to talk more. One coach told me one time, it's not what you know, it's not what your athletes even know, it's what they can do. And if we are talking way too much, it just is sickening to me how much time I spent talking in practice. What's more important is if we can teach them to talk. And let me pause right here and say, I'm not talking about culture. I'm not talking about the intangibles. Those things you've got to emphasize those every day. Getting outside yourself, playing for the team, playing for something bigger than yourself, communication, talking, the attitude, all those things. Those are not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, for example, in basketball, trying to be good at everything. And again, I made this mistake. Our teams would be so poor early. One year in specific, we were playing our main rival in the first game of the year. There wasn't a conference game, but it was a huge game to a lot of the people where I coached. The game goes into triple overtime. We end up losing on our home floor. And after the game, one of the brothers, one of my players' brothers, was there. And I'm talking to him. I was like, hey, what do you think? And he goes, well, to be honest, what do you mean? He asked me, he goes, what do you mean, what do I think? I said, well, what did you think of us defensively? And he said, I really have no idea what you were trying to do. I really have no idea defensively. And that really punched me in the face right there. We were so bad because we tried to do so many things. He couldn't even tell what our philosophy was defensively. Well, fast forward later that same year, the team that beat us, that same team that beat us in triple overtime, we beat by like 60 points on their floor. Why is that? Because we just tried to do too much. Now, do you want your teams to be better at the end of the year? Of course you do. But, in my case, I was just trying to do way too much, and I was talking way too much. So many coaches talk way too much. And again, we love to hear ourselves talk as coaches. We need to shut up. Sometimes we need to listen. We need to get more people to talk. PGC has a great saying, a quiet gym's a losing gym. Well, what does that mean? That means that the players are talking, not the coach. Another example of this is we used to run a team camp where I was, and after games, I'd be in my office in between games, and I remember this one coach literally talking to his team for 30 minutes after a team camp game, analyzing every single play. I walk out of my office where they're sitting. They're grouped up right outside my office, and I'm listening to this conversation. It's driving me crazy. I look at the players, the athletes, as they were sitting there listening to their coach analyze every single play in a team camp game. They were miserable. Half of them were basically asleep. Again, we need to quit talking and utilize the time we have. You cannot be good at everything. You just cannot be good at everything early. So pick one thing. What are you going to be good for? And if someone were to come watch your practice, would that person say, hey, I see you're going to be really good at this? And then eventually add things on to that. We need to talk less. Get your athletes to talk more. And I'm not talking about intangibles again as I repeat myself. So, this short episode, please, if you liked it, subscribe on YouTube or Spotify. Give it a thumbs up. And again, if you didn't like it, just keep your message to just keep it to yourself. So anyway, really appreciate you listening, and don't make the mistake of trying to do too much too early. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.